This is WICR.
Welcome back, people. We are back. I am your host. The Rock is on, and we are doing our third and final segment of the day. Now we are moving on from baseball to basketball, and we're gonna get into the Knicks because, the Knicks in years past. If you're a Knicks fan in my generation, like somebody like my age growing up as a Knicks fan, you have very little memory of guys like Patrick Ewing, Allen Houston, in the '90s Knicks. Because let's be honest, after 2000, the Knicks have just been such an abysmal and run organization. Excuse me, dysfunctionally run organization. You know, and as a fan, as Knicks fans in the metropolitan area and nationwide, you get frustrated when your team constantly makes poor decisions, constantly does the wrong thing, constantly does something so idiotic that it makes you want to pull your hair out. And speaking of Knicks fans, I am joined by our guest today for this segment, Ben Zeno, who is a huge Knicks fan. How you doing, Ben?
Yo, Rock, what's up? Appreciate you having me on the show today.
Anytime, man.
Thank you.
Now, how long? Now, Ben, let me ask you something. How long have you been a Knicks fan?
About my entire life.
So since you were born?
Get me up to third grade.
Third grade? So that was like what? 2003?
Yes.
Okay. 2002, 2003. So now, Ben, you have some vivid memory of Allen Houston, right?
Somewhat, yes.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you something. Be honest. How many since you've been watching since you've been following the Knicks, how many good seasons have they had, or how many memorable seasons have they had since you've been a fan?
Wow. '07 was a cool year. The Isaiah Thomas tenure. The Mike Woodson era was cool. If I'm being realistic with you, I'm a diehard Knicks fan, so I'm gonna say every year, but I'm gonna keep it in retrospect as a fan and a basketball analyst on this show. Record-wise, it's not looking pretty.
It's not because if you remember with Isaiah Thomas, they were abysmal, and then they had that 1 year with Larry Brown, which everyone thought that was gonna turn things around, but that was a disaster.
Correct.
But yeah, I remember that year with Mike Woodson though, where I think they were the third seed.
Yeah,
No, they were the second seed actually.
Mike Woodson came on for D'Antoni because he was an interim head coach at first, and then the year that they brought in Jason Kidd, Kurt Thomas, and Camby.
Yeah, that was the year after.
That's when Woodson got the title of head coach.
Yeah, but I'm saying that year, 2013, they were the second seed. They took the Celtics into 6 games despite them having a 3-0 lead. But they took care of business in that, and then they lost to the Indiana Pacers in the semifinal. And that was kind of like the last time a Knicks team ever went deep in the playoffs. Because prior to that, the last time a Knicks team made it past the first round was 2000. So let that sink in for a second, Ben.
Sinking in.
13 years. That's a big gap.
Yep.
Now next thing we got to talk about is the ownership of James Dolan. James Dolan, I'd say. Now, granted, I understand there's some owners or some Knicks fans may say, "Oh, there's worser owners in the NBA or even in the New York in the metropolitan area." You can say the Wilpons of the Mets. They get heavily criticized for not spending, or Woody Johnson with the Jets because he likes publicity or he cares more about publicity than winning. But I'd say if you have to ask me, who's the worst ownership amongst all 9 professional New York sport teams in the metropolitan area, I would say James Dolan. Now, Ben, I want to ask you, I don't know how much you know about James Dolan, but how frustrated are you with his leadership and him running things with the Knicks?
I don't know him on a personal level.
Well, not on a personal,
know,
but I'm just saying, like.
But James Dolan has a reputation of he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's only in for James Dolan. If he would have the opportunity to change the name to the James Dolan Knickerbockers, like how the old Charlotte Bobcats owner, his name was Bob.
Yeah.
So they was like, yeah, they called the Bobcats for him. James Dolan would probably do the same thing. But hey, it's James Dolan. It's his team. He got the money. He can do what he wants. But as a Knicks fan, it's Not not lackluster.
But it's got
Well,
to frustrate you, though.
it does at times, Rocky. It does.
Plus, it's kind of ironic how, if you think about this, or think about this, it's kind of ironic how James Dolan, he puts that product on the court for 82 games a year, and the Knicks have and it's just an abysmal product. And the Knicks, out of the 30 teams in the NBA, have the highest ticket sales.
And
Think about that.
the Knicks are the most coveted franchise in the league money wise at
I mean,
two bill.
possibly,
Yeah,
they're up there with the Lakers.
nah. I'm telling you,
Oh,
they,
it's 2 bill on the dot, 2 billion on the dot.
they're numero uno on that list.
Oh, wow, they're the most expensive NBA franchise. Wow, I didn't know that. But with the way James Dolan's running the team, and with him hiring Phil Jackson, which I thought at the time was a bad idea. I thought Phil was just in for the check. And you saw what happened last year when he hired Derek Fisher and he made him, and I guess you can say forced him to run the triangle offense. Give us your take on that. The hire of Phil Jackson.
The hire of Phil Jackson. At first, I'm like, oh snap, it's Phil Jackson. What is he doing back here in New York? Is he trying to recruit Clyde Frazier? Is he trying to get Earl the Pearl back on the court? But the basketball mind of Phil Jackson is one of the top minds to ever grace a basketball court. So,
And I'm not holding that against him because, as a basketball fan or any basketball fan, you got to have respect for Phil. The guy won 2 championships as a player with the Knicks, believe it or not, and 11 as a coach. So you can't hold it against him because he's arguably one of the greatest coaches of all time. But when he took that job, or he took the president job for the Knicks, I thought it was a bad idea because Phil Jackson was just, he had medical issues. He just didn't seem motivated, and then I remember listening to at the time, he asked, I think it was James Dolan, for permission if he can fly back from New York and Montana to see his daughter or something.
right. That's
And as a Knicks fan, you got to think, are you serious? You got to recruit players, you got to sign, you got to be a scout, and you're gonna ask if you can go back to Montana to see your daughter. That as a Knicks fan, as soon as you heard that, a red flag had to be raised.
An eyebrow was raised. Yes, definitely.
Now, I just want to last question, Ben, before we wrap things up. Do you think the way the New York Knicks are run as an organization, that it's going to prevent marquee free agents from coming to the Knicks? Like, say, for example, Kevin Durant, he's going to be a free agent this year.
Right.
So the way he sees the Knicks run, do you think he honestly think he's going to come here? Or any marquee free agent?
That's a good question because you can go over to last season's offseason, entering the 2015 offseason, when LaMarcus Aldridge had LaMarcus Aldridge declined a meeting with Phil Jackson because Phil Jackson said, "Yeah, you played power forward all your career. Come to New York and play the 5." LaMarcus Aldridge's like, "What? Excuse you? No, I'm not. I'm not even gonna have the meeting with you." So, with Phil saying stuff like that, it does cause a concern for the marquee free agents. But it's New York. The market is there. But you could also say Kevin Love was getting endorsements in Minnesota. It doesn't matter where you play in the NBA anymore. Oklahoma City, 2 of the biggest players in the league, they're playing in Oklahoma City. That's not a marquee market in the United States. So, with that being said, there is question for a free agent to come to New York.
So you think the Knicks can lure a free agent?
They can.
Such as?
They can lure free agents.
But I'm saying, despite all the negativity that's going on in an organization, you really think they can lure a marquee free agent like Kevin Durant?
Yes.
But let me bring this up, though. I remember last summer, the Knicks, they were trying to get Greg Monroe from, I forgot who he played for. Did he play for, was it?
He was on Detroit.
He was on Detroit, and then, but it was between the Bucks and the Knicks, and he chose the Milwaukee Bucks over the New York Knicks. Now, be honest, who wants to go to Milwaukee?
That's like
Who wants to go to Milwaukee? Seriously.
you sounded like Joakim Noah right now. When back in the day he was like,
Oh,
What's
Cleveland.
what's in Cleveland?"
He's like, oh, you don't hear anyone saying, oh, I'm going on vacation in Cleveland. Hey,
Uh,
but Cleveland actually is not a bad city, but that's a topic for another discussion because I've been there.
okay.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But seriously, if a player chose to go to Milwaukee over the biggest city in the world, that's a problem.
Well, nah,
And not so much for the player, but that speaks volumes for the organization.
I agree
I
at
mean, be honest.
some extent. That does agree because when you compare New York City to the market of Milwaukee, it's comparing a shark to a minnow. So, yeah, but Milwaukee has a nice basketball on roster. You know, a young team coming up with
Yeah.
Giannis, Chris Middleton. So I understand that move, but
They also have size too.
they have size. But hey, they were trying to shop Greg Monroe over the trade deadline.
Well,
But
because
that's another.
they didn't meet expectations though.
Yeah.
All right, last question before we wrap things up. Obviously, Kurt Rambis isn't doing a good job as the interim head coach. I want to know, who do you think is going to be the next coach for the Knicks, or who will be coaching the Knicks come October of 2016?
Yo, Rocky, I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. No Milwaukee Buck, but I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. When time is near, I'll come back on the show and make a decision.
Too early to
Too
make that
early.
statement.
Too early.
All right,
Hey, I'll tell you this.
what's up?
I don't want Tom Thibodeau.
Really?
Correct.
Any particular reason?
The way he does have a grindstein. Grindstein. I don't even know if that's
He
a word.
he overworks his
He
players.
overworks his players.
Yeah, I heard that with in Chicago.
I don't want to lose a locker room over a head coach like that for the players.
But he has had success though, and
He does have success. That is credited to his record.
And you have to admit, he's going to be in the running for the job though.
Of course, yeah.
If you like it or not,
I know.
because the Knicks, it's an appealing job. Coaches are going to be, breaking the door down just to get that job.
That's his dream job. He's been quoted about saying that.
Also,
So,
the other job, the Nets is going to be available as well.
yeah.
But I think more people would take the Knicks job than the Nets.
With that Brooklyn Nets stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not at least.
All right, that concludes our segment of The Rock is On. Tune into next week for more more segments and more sports talk. I'm your host, The Rock, and that's Benzino.
Yeah, at Benzino _ the hero in the cut. Check out me and Jiggity's bars on YouTube.